Hello again, feral friends and fellow nature nerds, and thank you for tuning in to Dirt Dispatch number 29. I feel the need to get on my soapbox this week. On the last Dirt Dispatch, I talked about defending porcupines. They have a very effective physical defense system going on, but their internet presence is just not very good. And I also mentioned that sometimes I feel like there are people who just hate nature. Okay, well, maybe hate is too strong a word, but for sure they have a strong negative reaction towards a lot of the natural world, and they look for excuses to help them justify that attitude. It's one of my pet peeves. But I finally came to the conclusion that there are several factors that contribute to this type of attitude. The first is fear. We humans frequently fear what we don't understand, and when we're afraid, we feel helpless, we feel not in control. And most humans don't react well to feeling not in control or like we're not at the top of the food chain. When it comes to nature, that usually means killing anything we consider to be a pest or a threat, even if killing is not a very effective way to control whatever it is that you're killing. I think it makes most people feel powerful and in control. So pesticides, herbicides, poisons, traps, whatever it takes to feel like we're the kings and queens of our domain. I can understand if you have things in your house like cockroaches or ants or things like that can't stay, they need to go. Even mice to a certain extent, although there are humane ways to get rid of mice, and poisons and glue traps are not those. They're horrible, horrible things. And of course, here in the United States, that means shooting stuff, because America. Someone I know recently posted a picture on social media of a badger near their house, complaining about how it's digging holes. Now, keep in mind that they live here in Wyoming, outside of town. A badger is a native species, and they live in that type of habitat. Commenters jumped in. Be careful, they're mean, a lot of them said. The number of offers to shoot and or trap it was, well, kind of disheartening. One commenter even stated that they've been living on their 300 acres for the last 25 years and have seen the badger population increase dramatically in that time. Now, my first thought was, that's great. And my second thought was that if they have 300 acres, there's plenty of room for badgers. But in their view, killing the badger was justified to, quote, protect pets, livestock, and children, unquote. And of course, on the internet, everybody's super tough and macho and ready to just open fire on whatever animal it is that they won't admit that they're afraid of. Coyote, shoot it. Porcupine, shoot it. Badger, shoot it. Snake, shoot it. Spider, okay, well, maybe not shoot it, but how many times have you seen a picture of a spider on social media and the first comments include something to the effect of, burn down the house and move? The sentiment is the same, even if the proposed mechanism is different. It still all boils down to fear. Fear that coyotes have supernatural hypnotic powers over dogs. Fear that a porcupine might apparently fill your child full of quills. Fear that a mean old badger is going to attack your livestock, which, for the record, doesn't really happen. Chickens, maybe, but anything bigger than that is pretty safe from a badger. Fear that every snake or spider you encounter is medically significant and only wants to inject you with all of their venom. So people just kill them because it's easier. Which brings me to the second factor, which is laziness. Maybe not sitting on the couch drinking beer and getting fat laziness, but more of an intellectual laziness. Learning is hard. Learning takes time. It takes effort. Now, for us nature nerds, learning is the whole point. We're fascinated by learning about all the things that we see in the natural world. But that's not the case for everyone. But it seems so simple. If these people who are just so quick to kill would learn about stuff, they wouldn't have to be afraid of it. And if they weren't afraid of it, they wouldn't have to feel the need to kill it. But that would also mean they'd have to change their attitudes, maybe even admit they were mistaken. And admitting that and changing their attitudes is probably even harder than learning. Now, the third factor that contributes to this attitude is a sort of entitlement. People, especially here in the United States, think that they should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, without having to think about how it impacts anybody or anything else. People don't want to leash their dogs, but they get upset when they get pincushioned by a porcupine or get in a fight with the local coyotes. People don't want to keep their cats inside, but they get upset when they disappear, and incidentally usually blame coyotes whether they have any evidence to that effect or not. People want to have free-range chickens, but they get upset when a predator like a fox or a hawk or sometimes even a badger eats one. People want more oil, more coal, more subdivisions, more strip malls, without considering how all that development impacts native plants and animals. Which brings me to another factor that contributes to this attitude, which is a disconnect from nature. People often view nature as something that needs to be tamed or conquered, man versus nature, instead of seeing that we humans are a part of nature, not apart from nature. But people also want trees and parks and songbirds, so they want nature, but they want to choose what nature gets to stay and which has to go. And guess what? Nature doesn't really work that way. Do porcupines kill trees? Sometimes. And that dead tree attracts bugs, and those bugs attract woodpeckers. And the holes made by woodpeckers are used by other cavity nesting birds like chickadees and bluebirds and tufted titmice. You know, the stuff that we want and like to see around. And later when those holes get bigger, they might be used by owls or raccoons or squirrels, or if you're in the east part of the United States, even gray foxes. You can't have some of these things without the others. They're all intertwined. If you can't find a way to coexist with badgers, porcupines, coyotes, or any other native wild animal, maybe don't move out into the country where there's a greater likelihood that you'll encounter one. Stay in the city where the wildlife is at least a little bit tamer. I recently did a program about owls, and I had a gentleman ask me if I thought that there were more owls around than most people realize. And if so, why don't people know? My answer was absolutely. I believe there are many more owls than people realize. And the why was easy. I think most people are still, at their core, not just afraid of wild animals, but afraid of the dark too. Maybe more specifically, afraid of the wild animals that they might encounter in the dark. Many people don't experience owls because they're simply not outside spending any significant amount of time at night. And during the daylight, not enough people indulge their curiosity. You know why I see owls during the day? A lot of times it's because when I hear crows or magpies or blue jays raising a ruckus, I indulge my curiosity and go see what all the fuss is about. What's that over there? I wonder where this trail goes. What kind of bug or bird or flower is that? I indulge my curiosity as much as I possibly can. It's why I love doing nature education. And being disconnected from nature is actually unhealthy, both physically and mentally. We need green spaces. We need nature. Yes, green spaces provide places for recreation, and they reduce both noise and air pollution. But it's more than just that. Just having a view of trees has health benefits. Hospital studies have shown that patients with a view of a small stand of trees outside their window had fewer post-surgical complications, used less pain medication, and had an 8.5% shorter stay in the hospital compared to patients who only had a view of an adjacent building. If you ask me, insurance companies should be clamoring, rushing to plant trees in view of hospitals. From a mental health perspective, researchers in Denmark found that childhood exposure to green spaces reduced the risk of developing anxiety, depression, and substance abuse later in life by up to 55%. In fact, that study found that exposure to green space was comparable to family history and parental age in predicting mental health outcomes. Other studies have shown that access to natural environments can help reduce the symptoms of ADHD in children, increase productivity in the workplace, and decrease stress and violence. Vegetated apartment complexes in Chicago have a lower crime rate and less litter. That's pretty amazing stuff. Okay, I'm going to get down off my soapbox now. In summary, connect with nature, indulge your curiosity, and please don't kill stuff if you don't have to. One of my all-time favorite quotes is from Henry David Thoreau, who said, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone." So leave that badger alone. If you'd like to support the podcast, consider becoming a patron. Check out all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can also donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd, or using PayPal and my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. That's also, of course, the email address where you can send any correspondence, questions, comments, or suggestions. Check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest. Click on products and get yourself some awesome Dispatches from the Forest merch. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dirt Dispatches is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.